Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to Big Man, Alaska. And in case you didn't know, I'm an Alaskan truck driver, and I just wanted to take you guys out on a ride, show you basically what I do for a job overall. For the time being, I'm driving a side dump right now, and this particular night, this is my new job, and this is something that I do periodically through the wintertime, and it keeps me busy, and it's also what I'm saying when I say, yeah, I got a weird schedule, because these snow haul jobs, they get called out at various times throughout the day, and we're not exactly sure what time we're going to work, so trying to balance a sleep schedule and everything else is kind of difficult at times. So we just need to, just go with the flow and try to be available as often as possible. And that does kind of compound my issue when I'm trying to create videos and stuff like this. But here I got my GoPro set up as a dash cam, and I was just experimenting with this camera this night, and I was not exactly sure what kind of image quality I was going to get or sound quality through the stock microphone and stuff like that. And it was kind of a daunting task to try to figure this all out and actually use some of the natural sounds from the truck motor and the outside sounds of the cars passing by and stuff like that. But here where we're going right at this moment, this is an Alaskan snow dump. And as we get down this road, which is actually quite interesting road, and it's always been something that's been rather intriguing to me, because this is a really old place and it's owned by the Aklutnans. They're actually a tribe which is called Aklutna, which is a town here just on the other side of the range. But they own all this property for miles along the seacoast, and it's quite the sight to see, especially if you look at it by airplane or something like that. But it's a tribe that's rarely talked about. They're not very big or anything like that. But as we drop down this little dip here, and if we look off to the left-hand side, these are little bunkers. I'm not sure if they were old World War II bunkers that they were used for storing ammunition, and I'm pretty sure this area would have been used during World War II as a place to either store ammunition or supplies. And around Alaska, there's various bunkers all over the place. You might find them in the weirdest places, but it's just one of those random happenstances that if you're out in the backwoods and really not even that far off the beaten trail, you might find some of these little gems. And it's just kind of interesting to see them there, because they're really not used, and they're just been sitting there for all these years. And I'm pretty sure over a period of time, people have probably tried to vandalize them and stuff. But yeah, as we wander further down this little path here, we're going to drop down, and this is actually a gravel pit in the summertime. And you can see these little roads cut off to the side, to the left and over to the right. And they have some equipment up on the hill, and they have like a sand plant, gravel plant for sorting out different size gravel rocks. And in the summertime, we might actually come in here and haul gravel out of here at times. But off to the right-hand side, it's a big mountain of snow. Just looks like a big hill. And this pile in the center is actually probably some stockpiled gravel. And they're just using this as a point for us to drive in and go around. And we have a couple dozers here in case anybody gets stuck. And if we get a lot of traffic in here, they use these dozers to push the piles up the mountain. That way we can have a nice solid floor to dump our side dumps down below. So this corner here does get a little bit slippery at times, so I got to slow it down quite a bit, almost do a crawl. And we basically just come around this corner. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just, surveying the land, seeing where the bumps are and stuff like that. Because after all, we are dumping off to the side of the trailer. So I'm downshifting now, and I'm getting down into about first gear. I'm engaging the PTO for the side dump, and I'm trying to figure out a decent spot to dump this load to where I'm not going to get stuck. And also I'm not going to create a problem for anybody else that might be coming along behind me. Now, thankfully, this night, it was a really quiet night. I think I only saw maybe one or two dump trucks come in this snow dump the entire time. But when we're doing this kind of particular process, as you can see, I'm all by myself. If something were to happen, or if I were to get out of the truck and slip and fall, or, try to clean some snow out of the side of the side dump, I could have some serious issues, because there would be nobody around to help me out. And the nearest person is actually quite a ways up this little road, and who knows how long it's going to take before somebody else might come down here. So if I were to get knocked unconscious or anything like that, I'd just be SOL for the time being. So yeah, we're heading back out of the snow dump. There's a little tiny neighborhood, and what you can see in front of you is the lights of Eagle River. Now, Eagle River is just a town outside of Anchorage a little ways. It's only about a 15-minute drive from Anchorage itself, and it's quite an interesting community. It's got some really beautiful places and nice scenery to look at. A lot of the military people are housed there, so if you're not living on post, and off to the right-hand side here is pretty much all like military post and stuff like that on that side of the highway. It is, quite interesting. But yeah, as we get further along, we're going to be dropping down Eagle River Hill and getting further into Anchorage. And it's just, this is just a little something I wanted to throw together for you guys that might want to see, like, okay, like what is the big man in Big Man, Alaska, Big John, what does he do for his job? And that was a hazard right there. If you just notice that car sitting on the side of the road, as I was coming down the hill, there was a car broke down in the right lane. Now, this is another reason why we kind of hang out here in the middle, because over on the shoulder, you can find a lot of booby traps hanging out on the shoulder of these highways in Alaska at night. So you always have to be kind of conscientious that, there's a broke down vehicle there and it could be stuck halfway out into the lane. And quite often, they are stuck halfway out into the lane, or somebody is laying under the car and their feet are out in the lane. And when these cars break down here in Alaska, they seem to break down in the shadows. So it's really hard to see them. And it's kind of like, trying to find a moose on a shadowy night. And that's something that we worry about too on occasion. But as we come in here, the roads are really crowded. There's actually a pretty decent snowbank right on my passenger side steer tire. So when I'm traveling like this through this far right lane, I have to be kind of conscientious, because if I get a tire over in that stuff, it's just going to suck me right into the bank and potentially up on the sidewalk. And I do believe later on that night a car did wind up in this area kind of hitting a light pole, and didn't create any problems for me throughout the night. Right now we are on, I believe it's 5th Avenue, and we're heading into Anchorage. It's kind of quiet night, even though there's quite a few cars out here. But ever since the pandemic happened, up to this point, it's become a lot busier, like within the last 3 months at nighttime. So before this, for the past 3 years, it was really quiet out here at night. We didn't hardly see anybody except for drunk drivers. And now we have a lot more airplane traffic that's going up north to Prudhoe Bay. And people drive from pretty far away to get to the airport just so they can get on an airplane and go to their remote job locations around the state. And it's not always the North Slope and Prudhoe Bay is where they're flying. Some people are flying out of state. And at this time of night, we have a flight out of here we call it the red eye flight, because it's typically when people are sleeping. It leaves around 1 or 2 in the morning. They have a couple flights that leave south and go to the lower 48. And then we do have a couple of flights that are typically coming in from the North Slope at about this time, and they're dropping people off so they can come home for their R&R, and then other people are going back to work to replace them. So yeah, it's kind of a constant back and forth of employees. And right now what I'm doing is I'm dropping down into an area of town which is where the Anchorage port is, and that's where we're hauling snow from, is in the Anchorage port. Unfortunately, it's a secure location, and I'm unable to actually videotape inside the port. So we're just gonna do the video right up until there, and then we're probably gonna just turn the video around as we're heading back out of town. And now we're heading out of town. This is after I just got loaded with snow. And of course we have a red light at the bottom of a hill, so they have these lights timed pretty decently so we can actually get up the hill. And right here you see that person just got pulled back because they're drunk. They're gonna walk right out in the traffic. They're not even paying attention. So thankfully that guy's friend was actually watching out for him. And of course we have buses that run pretty late at night here. I'm kind of surprised that the bus system is running as late as they are these days, because for a while there it seemed like there was no transportation for anybody throughout the pandemic and up until now. And then all of a sudden it just seems like everything just picked up. And a lot of these people that you see right here driving around me, many of these people are either coming from the bars or they're coming from the airport, and they're heading back out to Wasilla, Willow, Eagle River, Palmer area and stuff like that. There's really not a whole lot of actual local traffic that just kind of wanders around the city at night unless they're going to work or they're going home. It's definitely different up here. And this night in particular, it was extremely cold. I believe it was like minus 19 degrees in a lot of places. And then when I got out to the snow dump, I think the temperature was about minus 25 at the snow dump, because it's down in a dip. And typically the lower lying areas that are down in these little dips, like where the snow dump's at, it typically gets a whole lot colder in those areas. So you got to be mindful of that. And you also have to think about that when you're buying a home, because I've been in several homes, like living out in Houston, Alaska, or Willow, Alaska. I had a couple homes out there when I first moved up here, and it was extremely cold out there. It was ridiculously cold. It was, so whatever the temperature is here, so say the temperature's like minus 19 right here. Out there in Willow or Houston, Alaska, the temperature would probably drop down to about minus 30, sometimes minus 35. And it's been a whole lot colder this winter than the previous years that I've been up here. So now when I first moved up here in about 2004, that was when we had a lot of winters that were just extremely cold. And then as time went on throughout the years of me living here, it seemed to get a little bit warmer. In January, February were typically the coldest months of the year. And generally when I get to around February, that was like right before springtime kind of feeling. So if you could, financially make it up here in Alaska through February, you were pretty good. You're in a pretty good situation after February, because that's when things start warming up. That's when Alaska starts to experience what we call breakup, which is all this snow and ice you see around us. It just starts melting rapidly. It might turn into sheets of ice, and it just becomes a pain in the butt. But overall, the roads up here, even though they are covered in ice, if I should have happened to hit the brakes really hard and try to stop, I'd slide a lot further than I wanted to. But for the most part, the traction is really good up here. It's not that bad, especially when it's cold. Now, the colder the temperatures get here in Alaska, yeah, it just makes the tires stick better to the road. And we also run a different type of compound of tire up here. They use a lot of siping, and siping is just these little slits that are in the tires. And we also use a little bit softer rubber compound in the tire, so that way when it gets super cold like this, we still have pretty good traction, and the tires kind of just mold to the road, and they stick to the ice and snow a whole lot better than tires you might buy like in the Midwest, for instance. Like if you lived in Missouri or Joplin area, Kansas City, stuff like that. Those tires down there are a lot harder. And that's why the lower 48 drivers, they have a hard time trying to drive in the ice and snow down there, because their tires are a lot stiffer. And trust me, I lived down in Joplin, Missouri for a while, and I actually would come up here to Alaska in my first few years of living here, and I would work here throughout the summer. I'd spend about 4 or 5 months up here during the gravel season. That's when the big money is up here, when construction's going on. And then I'd hop on a plane and I'd fly down to Joplin, Missouri. I had another home down there, and I also had a lot of truck driving association down there in Joplin, Missouri, because it's kind of like the center of the United States. You can go in any direction you want to. You can go north, south, east, or west, and potentially be home within a day and a half, no matter which direction you go. So that's why I kind of liked being centrally located in the United States like that. And it was a pretty nice place to live, except for the random tornadoes. And when wintertime came, it could be a miserable place to live, because Joplin, Missouri is very humid all the time, even in the wintertime. So let's say temperatures up here could get down to minus 32, and then I could be down in Joplin, Missouri, and the temperature would be like 28 degrees. Well, 28 degrees doesn't seem that cold. In theory, up here it seems really warm to us, because we have a drier type of air, similar to Arizona. It's just really, really dry up here. It's like the frozen desert is what some people call it. So when I went back down to Joplin, Missouri, and if I was down there through the wintertime, 28 degrees down there would feel like minus 20 here in Alaska, and especially if there was a wind. And in Missouri, it's kind of flatland area, so you always have like a 5 or 10 mile an hour breeze coming through the plains and across the fields and stuff like that. So the really moist cold in Joplin, Missouri in the wintertime was absolutely miserable. Plus the houses down there, they weren't very well insulated. They didn't really take into mind that heaters were that important. So the heating systems in a lot of those houses down there weren't the greatest. But right now we're heading back into Anchorage after we just dumped all that snow. I'm gonna head back in. We're gonna get another load, and then we're probably gonna head out one more time. But yeah, I definitely wanted to give you some insight as to what the local area looks like here around town. And it's pretty rare for me to see daylight this time of year because I'm working at nighttime, and Alaska has been pretty well known for having forever darkness this time of year. So I can't remember exactly how many hours of daylight, but it's not very much right now. So just a short little nap, you can literally sleep through all of the daylight that the day provides. And quite often I might catch the tail end of it, or I might wake up in the middle of the afternoon and get something to eat, and then I'll get my dispatch, figure out what time I'm going to work, and then I'll go back to bed. And this dump truck right here, he's like literally the only guy I've seen down here in this dump site all night long. So it's kind of a warm feeling because I'm not really that far away from civilization, but I'm still a couple miles off the beaten path. Like the neighborhoods are quite a ways up the hill there. It would take me quite a while just to walk to safety if my truck should break down or I should need some help. And then if I should call somebody, it would still take them, half hour, 45 minutes to even get to me if I needed help for that matter. So, yep, we're getting back in the downtown area. We're gonna go pick up one more load and head back out. But as you can see, like all these car dealerships, and that's pretty much what this stretch of road is just car dealerships. We've got BMW, we got Mercedes, the Ford dealership, Chevy dealership, and all that are kind of in this area right here. And it looks like I am turning left. So you know what that means. If I'm turning left, that means I'm not going straight. So if I was going straight, I would be getting loaded with some more snow. Looks like I'm heading out of here, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.